Hafaday and good morning to you and to the people of Guam. Today is Friday, January 12th, 2024. This oversight hearing will be conducted by myself, Senator William A. Parkinson, Chairman of the Committee on Fire, Agriculture, Power and Energy Utilities, Public Transit, Unemployment Insurance, and Universal Health Insurance. This hearing is called to order and the time is now 9:09. For the record and to comply with the open government law, notice of this hearing was disseminated via email to all senators and local media outlets on Thursday, January 4th, 2024, and the second notice was also shared to all senators and local media on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. Notice of this hearing was also posted and available on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam Public Notice portal. This oversight hearing is called upon GPA to address items on our agenda relative to the following: OPA report number 23-10, GPA credit debit card usage, and 2, load shedding mitigation plans and timeline. I would like to welcome GPA here today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Senator.
The rules of conduct of this oversight hearing shall be as follows. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and state your name and title for record-keeping purposes. Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substantive nature of the agenda. Personal infringement as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Individuals who fail to abide by these rules will be restricted from participating and will be escorted and removed from the room. We will now hear discussion from those joined us today. I will allow you to introduce yourselves and your position or title for record-keeping purposes. After that, you can start with your testimony or discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. And with me today is our CFO, our Assistant General Manager of Operations, and our legal counsel. And yes, we took the initiative to go ahead and made a quick PowerPoint presentation to try to address the two issues that you brought up as the topic for the oversight hearing. So if I may, I'd like to start off with the OPA report 23-10 on government-wide credit and debit card usage. With that on the first page, Mr. Chair, again, the OPA did come out with recommendations, actually about 7, for us to address the deficiencies of our policies and operation. And I'm happy to know that as of January 10, which is actually 2 days ago, we've gotten and actually prepared. Comply with the recommendation, and not only that, but also we have completed training of our employees on the process. Again, the checklist were provided was about 7 of those, which included, again, travel-related issues, purchases, preparation of TA, and all various things, but mainly to also update our SOP to make that happen. Unfortunately, if I may step back a little bit and on page 3, if you look at that, the executive summary is talking about addressing about 16% of the expenditure of $431,000 for the period FY 2020 to FY 2022. A total of $71,000 of that is what the recommendation is addressing. I'd like to also note, Mr. Chair, is that the OPA summary of findings included there's no evidence of fraud or abuse. Its own island purchases. There's no evidence of product unavailability on island or cost savings, and untimely, incomplete, or missing travel clearances. And this was the subject of the last 3 is the subject of the recommendation provided by the OPA. As you can see in the summary of samples and all that, a lot of it also had to do with software license, laptops, hardware drives, air travel, body temperature gauge and readers, lodging and airfare for our travelers. And again, I'd like to note that this was also during a period of time during the COVID when we had to, for the safety of personnel and everyone, do whatever we could to get the monitoring equipment and everything to ensure safety for our employees and also our customers. On page 4, as I had noted earlier, we have complied with the recommendations, have completed our policy review and updated our SOP. And again, the challenges that I've worked there will certainly be addressed moving forward. Another item of the 2310 was also about the credits from mileage program, and that to be provided under the Senator Edward Cruz Medical Referral and Education Mileage Program. So GPA, with its current credit card, and I'd like to note we do have one credit card that's utilized and monitored and taken care of by finance. We do earn travel points, and that point, the total of the point as of August 2nd of last year was about 487,299 points. Our team has been working with DOE to make sure the process and procedures are in place to be able to transfer these points as required by the federal guide. The next item actually is showing some comparison of carriers and everything and that can be used and points required. John, if you can explain that a little bit more as to
Yes.
State your name.
Yes, my name is John Kim. I'm CFO for Guam Power Authority. The slide here is the point reward system from using our credit cards. So the law required us to capability to provide airlines for different carriers. So we did this with this program where they go through Oversight.com through the credit card companies, and they could do multiple destinations rather than just United. So we're giving examples. They could use Philippine Airlines, United Airlines, other ones like Jeju Airlines, and Korean Airlines. And they also even have that. So they have multiple capabilities that the orbits can provide. But based on that, they have different points. One thing about with this is all they requires is about $10 processing fee. So that's only out-of-pocket expenses that would incur whoever does the traveling.
And that's the portion on the credit card, Mr. Chair. And if I may continue with the load shedding portion, I can go through that and then at that point maybe answer any other questions that you may have. No?
Sure.
All right. So again, on generation capacity, as we all know, most especially after Typhoon Mawar, it's a result of loss of some of our generators. It's a result of not being able to do maintenance on certain generators because of again protest processes in our procurement. And all of that, we end up in a period of time where load shedding is kind of the norm over the past several months, and again, as I have noted and will note again today, over the next few months within 2024. Page 16 provides an overview as to what happens when one base load unit is down. We could load shed as much as 18 megawatts. 18 megawatts is the equivalent of close to 5 to 6 circuits, no? And the red portion is what usually is load shed, and again that occurs usually between the period of 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. When we have two base load down, it goes from 18 megawatts to as much as 61 megawatts. And especially if the demand is high, which has been that case, as I will note again even further later on, most especially between the period of time between May and November of the year when the demand is typically the highest from history. So on the right side, you can see the substantial amount which could come into the early portion of the day, but typically because we do have solar PV during the daytime, the utility scale solar, most of the load shedding, if not all of them, actually occurs between the period of anywhere between 4 to 11 o'clock in the evening. No? The next page gives you a summary of load shedding from September 1st to December 31st of last year. As we can see from here, the percent of energy on serve is, we calculated how much energy did we load shed over the total energy that we would have produced without any load shedding. In September, it was 0.59%. In October, it was 0.25 of 1%, of course. And this November is 0.7. And actually, December we didn't calculate it, but that is substantially less, as could be seen that the hours of outages, September was 290 hours that was impacted, October 115, November 301, and in December 20 hours. So far in January, we've been talking maybe less than 10 hours also that has been load shed. And part of it was last night when all the base loads were on, but we had 2 units that came down. One has been repaired and the second one is being worked on. So we load shed for a period of about 1 hour and 45 minutes, about three circuits each. What's most important is if you look at the bottom part of this, and you can see that really the demand from October was 249, November 245, then December 237, coming down to about 232 in January, February, and then March, April, May, and most especially in May, that's when we start seeing the highest demand for the period. Before that, we'll have a day or two of a typical high demand, but not like what happens during the summer. And that's why our urgency is to work as diligently as possible to get every generator that could produce power back as soon as possible. And we have been doing that, and things change over time. Units will continue to come up and down, which is not that normal for generators to occur, and most especially when we have 2 base load units that are about close to 50 years old. And again, these are things that are just matter of what it is today. And again, in anticipation that the new power plant is coming on within about, of course, right now the date that was provided also was January 2026. If you look at the action plan on page 12, again, Cabras 2 base load, and actually, if I may knock on wood first, the Cabras 2 in the early portion, we couldn't keep her up. It was boiler tube after boiler tube after boiler tube repair. And each time you have to make a repair, it takes anywhere from 5 to 10 days to get that repaired. However, Cabras 2 has been operating now since late November continuously. So I think hopefully we've gotten most of the tubes. Not to say it's not going to happen again, but at least it's not happening in the frequency that it was in the early part of the load shedding period, like late August and September. PD7 is up to 30 megawatts, and that's the one that went down last night for a problem, but we're hoping to get it back up today. So, G-Goose combustion turbine, that is in Texas. The schedule is about completion of the generator and being ready to ship by the end of this month. And we are looking at how to ship it back to Guam, because right now to ship it by ocean freight will take 45 days. We are in contact with the Air Force to see whether I can air freight through the Air Force this rotor here as soon as possible and cut that maybe to a period of only about within 2 weeks to get it here. So again, we're doing everything we can to get this generator up, because 20 megawatts, like last night, or the past few periods in December, we would not have experienced load shedding if we had at least that 20 megawatts. The Replacement of capacity and of the JIGU units, we're still a work in progress. That doesn't happen overnight, but we're looking at maybe getting that done by September of this year. All the other generators, we are working to try and get up as soon as possible by May. But again, these are targets. We're going to do our best we can. But all we do know is that every megawatt that we can get up between now and the summer will help alleviate load shedding. We're also working with the Navy. They do have a capacity of 18 megawatts there. 5.6 is operating and has been helping us over the past month or so in alleviating. And in fact, they'll be helping us this weekend if necessary. And so we're working to work with them to get that capacity restored and to be utilized to serve the community on the island. So that's ongoing at this point. We do have an emergency procurement for temporary power of 40 megawatts that we are evaluating and going through the process now. I hope to have some decision on that by next week at the CCU's meeting as we go forward and do negotiations with the proponent. Only one proponent that came in that could do it within 100 days. So we're working with him at this point and see whether their proposal is acceptable or do we do other things other than that. So again, if you look at page 13, that gives you an outline of all the different things that we're working on one time. And I have to put my hats up. We're down to our AGMO here, Ms. Jennifer Sablan, that's been working real hard these are the things that are under her purview, under her team, working real hard day up to not only try and get all these mitigation actions done, but also keep the units running at the same time. So if you look here, we're talking about targeting the increase of bringing on board increase of about, let me see, the bringing on board capacity that are not all currently operational, such as the 20 megawatt restoration of JIGU CT. We want to increase the Cabras unit up to 40 megawatts each. They're 66 megawatt machines, but we just can run them at 66 anymore. So we're not really going to be increasing it. We're going to actually be increasing it from where it is today. And excuse me, I'm getting confused because we are in 2024. So I have to get used to 2024. So if I may go to January 11, that's where we are today. 76 megawatts of all of this that will be restored. We're hoping by May that we'll have 185 compared to the 76. So that will be an additional 111 megawatts that we try and bring on the line with all the things that we're trying to do. By September 2024, that 185 will go up another 20 megawatts. No, if we can, by relocation of some of the diesel units, if we go that far. But again, and then the same thing will occur by September 2025. But the next page will basically show you what does all of this capacity coming online mean. Today, we're short about 80. We have a reliability criteria of 1 day and 4.5 years. That's the criteria the PUC has set. With that criteria, it basically takes care of if you lost the biggest unit, the second largest unit, and probably close to about 1/2 of the third largest unit. That's the criteria that the PUC wants to maintain for the system to maintain reliable energy. And we've been pretty much been in that scenario, except since the loss of Cabas 3 and 4 back in 2015, and the understanding that we are building Okudu. So we're short about 88 megawatts. If you look at what we're planning to do, if we achieve everything, and believe me, it's a challenge, so I cannot guarantee you that everyone will be achieved, but we are working real hard to get to there. We're going to drop that from 88 to 11. No? That means the lower the load shedding. By September, will be a +1, which means that we are at the reliability level. And again, when Okudu comes on the line, and if you know there, it says September 2025. So we have been negotiating with Okudu Power Plant for the acceleration of the construction of the Okudu Power Plant from January 2026 to September 2025. So I'll be bringing that to the CCU next week, or by the following, on the regular CCU meeting, for decision on that to accelerate. So therefore, if you look, if Okudu does come on the line in September 2025, you're looking at a positive capacity of about 72 megawatts. That's with Okudu coming on the line and the retirement of Cabras 1 and 2, because that's part of the consent decree. Bring on the new power plant, retire Cabras 1 and 2, so that we can comply with regulations.
So just to clarify real quick, when the new power plant comes on and we have Cabras 1 and 2 retired, we're having a net positive of 72 megawatts?
Correct. And
All right.
that will take care of load growth. And again, this does not consider the process that we are going through in terms of renewables. We have a phase 4 bid today that is being evaluated for over 200 megawatts of renewables. Remember the law for us to comply about 50% renewables, no, by 2035. We're trying to hit that target by 2030, if not earlier. But the phase 4 renewables that we have today, 50% of the energy that is produced is stored in batteries and to be utilized in the later part of the day. So that means that the peak in the evening is going to be shaped by the batteries. Therefore, not only, so those batteries will now begin to add firm power to the system. So you're going to have over 100 some megawatts of capacity that will take on additional growth. So the point in this is that we're really, this is the short term, this is the term we're having difficulty, but there's a huge light at the end of the tunnel, and everything is contracted for or close to be contracting for in phase 4, renewable, to be able to help us to get there. And again, this is where we start, again, it's going to be a whole different ball game. It's going to be lower cost energy on a sustainable basis because of the combination of Okudu and renewables. But again, that's a whole PowerPoint presentation in itself to show, but it's something that we've been showing before, except we're kind of delayed because of the Typhoon Mawar. But everything there, Senator, is still moving as per plan. No? We're just heavily concentrated right now on this scenario. Again, on the actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. The next page is really page 15, and that gives you an idea, again, as to the revised commissioning date and how we're talking about trying to get that by September, no? Which is October, November, about 4 months earlier than what it is today. 4 months earlier, that means a lot, because that means that Okudu will be start testing about 4 months before the commissioning date. So they test the machine. So therefore, that's capacity that's on the island for emergency that I could try and work with. So now you're looking September, so that will be June, July, August, September, as March, as May, of 2025, we'll start seeing some production out of the Okudu power plant. Long-term generation capacity, again, in page 16, that's the renewables. We have 5 bidders. That's for over 180 megawatts of capacity. I mentioned about 200 some plus that have been proposed. It may take 3 years upon CCU and PUC approval for the construction. So now you're looking at 2027, no, coming on the line. So again, this is way ahead of the 2035 mandate. We do have a Hanwha 60 megawatt solar plant also that is before the PUC, and we'll see what decision they make on this. That's another 40 megawatts of capacity with batteries that will come on the line about the end of 2025 or early 2026. That would help us also with the not only load shedding but also start to get away from the high cost of fuel that we have today. So again, the PUC has that on their agenda. And we are also still looking at virtual power plant. This is a bit that we said we wanted to go up with. But again, with everything happening, the commissioning, we cannot just, the issue of putting in renewables is not a plug and play. We have to carefully do that, otherwise we'll be shutting down conventional units in the daytime, and that's not a good thing to do. So again, long-term generation is still as to plan and as to targets. And again, you're looking at about the 2026, 2027 time frame. We're going to have getting close to 50% renewables within that period if all of these 5 proponents are awarded. The process that
What year did you say again, sir?
all these 5 proponents that have submitted bids, they're all going through what we call a system stability study, which determines whether in fact their proposal can be operated within the system and stabilized. And if necessary and additional things have to be done, they have to be willing to accept that at the price they propose. And if that's acceptable and the CCU and PUC award it, we're going to be close to 50% renewables, within the 40 to 50% renewables by 2027. That's how close we are. So again, I'd like to note that the prices here that they propose is higher than as previously noted because of various things. One, battery costs have gone up. Two, permitting and all these issues that they have to go through in the process. They're more familiar with it now, to how to comply with WAM regulations and all of that. So, and three, labor. As we all know, it's a big impact in the community. All of this have impacted the cost, but still, in my opinion, the costs are not beyond reason that it will not help us in achieving our goal of trying to get sustainable power on an affordable basis. And again, that's another PowerPoint presentation in itself, but I just want to let you know that everything is moving to plan, especially between now and 2027. We're going to get very close to what was mandated for 2035, no? And not only that, but of course there's the big concern about the island community and China and North Korea and all of that. And as we can all see, there's been a concerted effort by the military to build up the island for not only the defense of the nation, but also the defense of the island. And so therefore, everyone needs energy. And the sole supplier of energy on the island is Guam Power Authority. Under the Guam scenario, it continues to be that way and for the foreseeable future. And so therefore, we've also, as a result of, Typhoon Mawar, have made a lot of requests as to how do we make the island more resilient and less susceptible to not only natural threat like typhoons, but also threats from unfriendly threats. And so therefore, we've looked at how do we estimated what it would take to underground the whole island. About $7 billion, 6.4 billion is our estimate. With that, Mr. Chair, we've done so much over the past 20, 30 years. We've gone from wooden poles to now 99 point something percent concrete poles. That's why we're able to recover fast in Typhoon Mawar. But that's not good, that's what we could afford. If we can get funding from others, which we have been seeking from, like the military and FEMA and everyone, and start putting underground system on the island, you're going to see quick recoveries in the future, hopefully within the next 10 to 15 years, if we begin today, no? If not, we'll continue to do what we have to do. But again, we have a very strong concerted effort out there asking for $6.4 billion of funding. In that, it also includes installing about 180 megawatts of energy storage batteries, consisting of 45 megawatts. So it's not just one battery, it's 4 batteries totaling 180 megawatts, situated in certain parts of the island, that would allow us to do this. Most importantly, is to be able to have more renewables on the island without everyone having to put in a battery. Can you imagine having thousands and thousands of batteries on this island if that's the case? But by having this centralized storage battery, we can allow people to generate, customers to generate in the daytime. We catch it with these batteries and use it in the peak time. So again, this is about a $500 million project that we're asking for. And again, there is gaining traction, and I hope one day soon that we will get some grants for some of this. In addition, of course, underground of the 34.5 transmission lines. Replacement of Debit 1 and 2 combustion turbines. Those are also 30-some years old. We've been keeping them running for 30-some years. But now there are better technologies, and of course at some point we're going to have issues with getting parts. So therefore we're asking that to be replaced. In addition to maybe one day we'll take over distribution of the military bases, because we have the strength, we have the capacity to do that. So GPA can bring in additional revenue from the military, while the military also serves substantial amount of energy by having us do the energy because of economies of scale. So that's part of it. And on page 19, there's a breakdown of the $6.4 billion of effort, again, which is part of our plan over the next few decades, or hopefully earlier, to funding from the military, to underground transmission lines, meaning put a main circuit breaker in each of the villages so we don't have to wait until lines, the extension cord is spliced together so that we can get power to telephone. If you have underground lines transmission, you have power right in the door telephone pole, and just start fixing the breakers from there. You're talking about putting underground lines at all the water wells series. You're talking about underground lines at the communication centers, dialysis centers, all the critical infrastructure on the island. That's part item 2. And then other critical infrastructure to support the generation and capacity of the system, and the efforts of the team to keep the equipment maintained. And then the last item is undergrounding all of the villages. completely underground on the whole island, 6.4 billion. Is that far-fetched? I hope not. Puerto Rico, Virgin Island, got about $2 to $3 billion. Puerto Rico had about $11 billion. Guam, who's very strategically located and very important to everyone, including the military, is only asking for 6.4. No? And with that, I don't think anyone has to worry about us anymore, if you will. No? So, I think I have one last page, Mr. Chair, and I can open. So, how do we dispatch with the centralized battery system? As you can see, normally the yellow will go all the way down towards the zero. So we're going to catch most of that and turn it to the beige or orange or brown, or if you will, Mr. Chair, I still don't get that color. And that's the shifting. So then the conventional unit, the blue, that's the Ukudu power plant, cheap energy, trying to stabilize it and running consistently throughout the day. As we add more renewables, you keep bringing it down. We're bringing it down. So the combination of cheap energy from Ukudu plus solar PV, as you can see, with this scenario, it's almost like a 50% renewable and 50% conventional. That means today, when our price of oil goes up this way, it only impacts us 50%. That means 50% of the money stays on this island and multiplies. So really, this is a very key part of, again, for the future of the island to get away from energy crises that occur on a regular basis. Case in point, Ukraine happens, right? Case in point, Iran does this and shoots one of the tankers, oil prices go up. So this is how we're going to alleviate that. And that's what we mean. We're going to bring our costs down to an affordable basis, on a sustainable basis through the addition of renewables. So that, Mr. Chair, is my presentation today, and I'm open to answer any other questions, any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that presentation, sir. So yeah, I do got some questions. We just spoke about the power and load shedding stuff, but let me rewind to that first bit, and we'll talk about some of the stuff on the OPA before we move on to the load shedding stuff.
Sure.
Sample 22 in the OPA report states that the cost of airfare at $5,233. Sample 23 states $4,020 for the cost of airfare. These amounts are not consistent with economy class travel. Does the Guam Power Authority purchase business class travel?
No, sir. We don't. It's all economy fare.
What is GPA's policy regarding the purchase of business class airfare tickets? Is there any exceptions at all for it? Just flat none?
No, I think, not that I can remember, maybe ages ago, when we had someone that was almost an invalid, or as a possibility, but that was over a decade ago.
Okay.
Other than that, no, our policy has been economy fare.
And that's GPA policy?
Yes.
Are you aware of Public Law 3654, which prohibits the government of Guam from purchasing business class tickets?
That prohibits what?
Prohibits the government of Guam from purchasing business class tickets.
I'm not specifically aware of that law, but I know that's our practice. We don't buy business class.
Well, just to let you be informed, Public Law 36-54 also prohibits government in Guam. So it's not just an internal GPA policy, it's also by statute.
Yep.
The OPA report noted a personal trip paid with a government credit card. The OPA reports that a personal trip from Houston to Las Vegas was paid for with a government credit card at the additional cost of $474. Was this traveler required to pay back the cost of this personal trip? And does this not constitute theft of government funds?
I'll let the CFO answer.
Which one are you referencing?
Oh, it was in the OPA reports. I believe it's on page 11.
I think that on this paragraph, it says the question cost, the estimate was 500. The travel portion was initially quoted at 474, and the price increase of $30 was nominal.
Okay, so the section I'm looking at is for sample 3 at 2K. The receipt and confirmed itinerary showed an additional flight from Houston to Las Vegas that is not covered in the approved TA. The additional flight was for a personal trip that the traveler was to pay directly to the travel agency. The travel agency provided an initial quote of $2,463.62, which consisted of $1,989.62 for the GPA's portion and $474 for the traveler's portion. The initial quote expired and the airfare costs increased by $30.63 to $2,494.25 inclusive of the agent service fee. The price increase did not separate GPA's portion and the traveler's portion and was fully paid with the GPA's credit card. The total airfare was $2,494.25 was claim charge and the duly approved TA. So that would be the section that we're talking about there.
Yes. On that one, the employee who worked on this travel, she retired, so we couldn't have all the information. Normally, what happens is when they have multiple stops, the airfare is actually cheaper than the initial quotes. But usually document that and say if they need to, if there's a change, we have to get reimbursement from the employees. But at that time, we don't have, since 11, we don't have the documentation to really analyze that one.
So we paid a personal trip with a government credit card, and that flew under the radar because there was no documentation for it?
The lady, the employee left. She retired, so we don't have access to her information. So we can't validate it if the employee portion is higher, or if the travel cost is more. So we don't have the documentation to it.
How soon after this trip did this person retire?
This person retired over a year ago.
A year ago?
Yes.
And so they retired a year after the trip, and the documentation was not squared away a year after the trip?
Yes. I mean, when this audit happens, we went to go back to look at the documentation. We couldn't find it.
Okay. For as small as this amount is, I would think it would be very disturbing that we're paying for people's personal trips and it's just okay because people are retiring and we're not getting the documentation done in a timely manner.
I'm sorry. I think, Senator, our adjustment of the standard operating procedures, including requiring of course, the GM to make sure that everyone gets their travel documents in within, I believe, 10 days, should address similar situations and avoid that type of scenario in the future. Because yes, if there is a difference, it should be the employee that pays the difference. No.
All right. GPA's card usage policy states that credit cards and debit cards shall not be used for on-island purchases. What should be the procedure for on-island purchases, and why was this policy not followed in cases cited by the OPA? For example, the $15,563 in expenses charge for remote desktop services.
I think perhaps that's a scenario where something was urgently needed for the utility, and maybe a decision that we or I made to bring in something that's necessary to keep services operating. So maybe again, I'll check whether we updated that policy for exterminating or whatever circumstances. No.
Okay. I understand the position that these things may have been critical for operations at the time, but if they were critical for operations, I don't want your answer to be, it may have been critical and that's why we did it. I want your answer to be, it was critical and that's why we did it. So was this equipment critical? Or was it possibly critical?
I can only answer you by saying, it appears to me that it was critical, and most likely that's why the decision was made. No? And I can double check into it. But when I look at scenarios like that, if it's available here, then get it. If not, everything related with, of course, financial management systems, computer systems and protection for the system is critical for us. No? So I can probably assume, if you want me to say that it was critical, then that made the decision. However, we'll double check into it.
Yes, let's figure out what was this stuff for. What was the rationale for why your own policies were not followed?
Yep.
Because because we have these policies in for a reason. You have these policies in for a reason, and so whenever there's a break in policy, it should be documented clearly the reason why. Just for the transparency, and for when we look back in history, we're not going, well, it was maybe this, or was maybe that. Let's have some certainty onto why these actions were taken.
No, it's to also have trust in our employees that when something like this happens, it's really, case in point, let's talk about the procurement process for all the big machines that we're trying to get today. We're trying to get things done, it's critical and everything, so sometimes, so maybe, there's a case where we probably have to change our policy to allow for critical circumstances that may occur, and of course, document it as necessary. But again, I'll look into it, Senator, and make sure we address it.
And so I guess on to my next question, let's talk about travel vouchers. The OPA noted an example in which travel occurred in December of 2019. Accounting did not record the actual travel expense until September of 2020, almost a year later. The travel voucher was dated May 1st, 2023, more than 3 years after the date of travel, and was unsigned by the traveler. The CCU chairman did not sign the voucher until May 2023. This was not an isolated incident. The report notes 3 other instances of travel in which the voucher was not signed nearly a year later. Why are these travel vouchers so egregiously late? And how are you able to verify travel years later, at times without the signature of the actual traveler? Shouldn't reimbursement be denied when these things aren't done in a timely manner? How do you guys verify these expenses year after the fact?
Well, actually, I think it's not necessarily that all the documents were not there. Maybe the report was not submitted as appropriately at that time, but the documents cannot change, no? So whatever it paid or whatever the quotes that were given, those were all should be there. So again, we're addressing it with our revised policy, no? And we will comply moving forward, Senator.
The OPA listed 7 recommendations. So let's just talk through them again. I believe you said that points 1, 2, 3, and 4 were being addressed by you folks, but we'll just read them into the public record. GM to have non-travel related card purchases go through their procurement department. 2, administrative staff preparing the TA to follow small purchase requirements. 3, accounting to ensure that the TA packet contains the required number of written quotations before routing it for management approval. 4, accounting to remind travelers of the due date for travel clearance and notify the CFO of untimely submission and the GM of consistent unresponsiveness to the deadline. 5, GM to enforce travel clearance deadline mandated by law. 6, accounting to develop a checklist and distribute it all to administrative staff processing travel. The checklist should contain the requirement for quotations showing the original quoted price for a direct flight and any changes made thereafter. 7, policy review committee to update the credit card usage policy. So, I believe in your presentation you said points 1 through 4 were being addressed as part of your updated processes. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And what about for point number 6, accounting to develop a checklist and distribute it all to administrative staff processing travel?
Yeah, that was done and the training was completed.
Okay. And so, where could we find these new policies if we were curious to look into more details about them?
We can forward to you.
All right. Please go ahead and forward that to my office. I'd like to look more into them. Frankly, on this subject, before we move on to load shedding, I have to say I'm very unimpressed by the nonchalantness about paying for personal trips and we're never getting that money back, and how we could be so untimely in our travel reports and be paying things back years after the fact with no signatures in a way that's very hard to verify, with a lot of maybe these were important, maybe these weren't important. I understand in giving a lot of latitude to let you folks do your jobs, but at the same time, we do need clarity in the answers, and frankly, we need a lot more accountability and transparency in this process. However, that is my feelings aside on those issues and how they should be handled. That's for the AG to decide how to go on moving forward. So let's talk about the load shedding. I introduced Bill 201-37 to expedite maintenance, overhaul, and operation of diesel generators at the request of GPA. Can you explain where that bill fits into your timeline, and is this bill still necessary to complete your load shedding mitigation? And if the procurement were to be expedited, what safeguards do we have in place to ensure a fair procurement process in the best interest of the ratepayers? So I guess that's kind of a two-parter. Let's just start with the first part first. You had a little timeline on page, what page was it? So I was looking at that timeline, and I was just curious, do these account for the emergency generator repairs, or is this a separate increases that's not including the emergency legislation? Because I have introduced the emergency legislation in 201 and 206 for the emergency repair of diesel and for the construction of emergency or temporary power generation. And so I'm just curious onto this timeline, where do those projects fit?
They both still fit, Senator. We both need that in case we go down the road here and ready to award, and then somebody protests, no? Then we're dead in the water again.
Yeah.
And
So
so
I guess what
I'm
I'm sorry, sir. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is this timeline here. Does that already include it? So if these bills were to not pass, would tranches of these power generations start to fall off?
No, what's happening is that we're moving with what we could do, no, in terms of moving the whole process forward.
Yeah.
The Bill 201 and 206 is to really provide certainty to everyone, including the vendors and everyone, that this is urgent in the needs of the community and the island for the safety and health of everyone. That this is not something to be protested. Of course, we as a utility are quite responsible and will make sure that we make in the best interest of getting the job done and being as fair to everyone, because we are quite, again, everything we do become quite transparent. Everything that I have to get the proof at the end, I have to go to the CCU, the PUC. So I go through a whole process as far as to the openness of the project. So yes, we are working to make it be fair, but the procurement regulations, in my opinion, are too skewed to the vendor and not the government entity. And perhaps more importantly, you add to that the level of requirement where machines break and they have thousands of parts, thousands of things that are related with it, and we have to get something to get it done. And those are very important. So we, Senator,
Oh, I absolutely agree with you, sir, about getting these done.
Yeah, let me go back to a critical example of this. We were going to put 40 to 50 megawatts of solar with full energy storage battery of about close to 40 to 50 megawatts so that we can shave the peak. That would have been done today if there was not a protest of that particular. We went through the protest process. The OPA decided in our favor. Then they took it to court. The Superior Court, of course, again decided in our favor. So here we are, over 2.5 years later, and the project could not go forward. So what did the ratepayers and everyone in Guam lose? Over $100 million, no?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's unreasonable that anyone will hold their price for 2 years. So we won the battle but lost the war. So again, similarly here, we're trying to move forward, but everything is so, in my opinion, skewed away from us. Government employees are, I don't know, but there seems to be a cliche that we're not honest, no?
Yeah.
We're not doing the best interest. So all I ask is make the procurement regulations fair, because it's costing the people of Guam substantial amount of money. So here, I'm asking Bill 201 and 206 to be passed so that as we move forward, we'll be accountable. We're transparent. We work as a team. We try to make the best decision based on all our experience to get the job done. But we need that help, because I'm going to proceed. This is if you notice what I say, targeted. Things might change between here and there, no? And that's why I need help. I need the support of everyone to get this thing done. But, so again, if it will, Please continue with Bill 201, which is the diesel. So if you see a lot of the repairs, the diesels, we'll try and go through a process to get them repaired. But if somebody protests, then you know, we're again talking about anywhere close to, if I'm correct, about 90 days to resolve it. 90 days we don't have between now and so and so. So yes, if you can continue, Senator, see whether we can get that on. And again, we'll be held accountable for whatever action we do because well, we need help, you know. Our team is working real hard to get this done. So, but
Yeah, thank you for that, sir. I do agree with you. Like, don't let it be misconstrued. Though I have been critical of GPA today, I fully believe in giving you guys the help you need, and I'm fully pushing to get 201 and 206 passed. I had previously requested an expedited placement of the bill on the agenda, and I'd even requested for an emergency session. I was denied on both of those, but I have now gotten 201 on the session agenda, and I do believe it's on its way to passage in the legislature. And 206 will be soon after as well, sir. So you will be getting the help you need. I just wanted to clarify that point on where those projects fit on this timeline, so that way I could tell my colleagues that if these bills don't pass, these tranches could possibly fall off. Because I'm expecting a new baby this summer. You know, I don't want to have a summer of load shedding when I got a new infant that's got to stay in good conditions. So I am right with you folks just in terms of avoiding that summer of load shedding. So let's go on. I know you touched on it briefly, but let's go over the current completion status of the Ukudu power plant. What percentage of completion would you say it's at right now?
which one?
The Ukudu power plant.
Right now,
Spitball a percentage.
I've been, well, let's just go by when does it really start to make a difference for us, if I may.
Yeah, that's actually what I was curious about, because you had
Yeah.
mentioned that the power plant will be online and working before its actual rollout date for you to test it in the system. So I'm just kind of curious on what that would do to the capacity with all 5 systems
So
going.
you're looking at maybe between the first to second quarter of 2026. I'm sorry, not of calendar year. So you're looking anywhere between March and June. The capacity. Remember, there's 3 combustion turbines. Each has to be tested. Then after that, the way the combined cycle works is it takes the heat from the exhaust gas, heats a radiator, which is like a boiler, produces steam, and runs a generator, turbine generator, just like Cabra's power plant. So you have to get these 3 working, and each one is 45 megawatt. Each one of those is like the temporary power that we're trying to get today for 40 megawatt. So they start testing that. That means that's power already feeding into the grid. Then they put in the combined cycle, which could be a couple of months after these 2 are they complete the testing. Then that adds another 63 megawatts. And then they're going to run it completely on that for about a month or so to make sure they get all the kinks out. And then they say, okay, from this day on, it's commissioned. And that's September 2025. From that day on, commissioning is important because after that, if they don't comply or something goes wrong, then there's a penalty under the contract. So therefore, that's what I mean about the generators will start generating several months before. So that would help us in early 2025. So we're looking really about anywhere from a 12 to 15 month of vulnerability. And that everything that we do in this list starts to reduce the vulnerability, no? In terms of load shedding. And I have to get most of this in by around the May time frame or shortly thereafter to avoid high impact of load shedding like we've had, in August, September, where 2 base loads are down and we load shed 60 megawatts. A little bit, 10 to 20, is, still manageable. It's less irritating. It's still an inconvenience, but it's not anywhere where we were in that time frame. So, again, whatever help I can get, we'll continue to get this, including one of the good news is getting the 20 megawatts, which we're trying to air freight in. Imagine air freighting, how many tons is that? The Air Force through their cargo planes are willing to work with us to do that. So we can get that online at least maybe 1 month earlier than what it would have been to ship it. So that's what I mean. So as far as percentages, the turbines are all in place. The steam turbine and boiler is in place. Most of the construction is completed. What's the last parts of the construction are the storage tanks and that were damaged, and that's already going up. The next part is the pipeline. Without fuel, we can run, right? So the pipeline, most of the pipeline is completed except the Route 16 from the top of Airport Road all the way down to Okudo. So that's the process that we're trying to get moved on. And they have this period of time of anywhere from 8 months to complete that. And if they do that, which I think they could, then we can start bringing fuel up there so that they can start testing this thing in early 2025. So percentage completion, I will get that for you, Senator, but really what's important to me is that all the hardware and the key components of the system are in place. Everything now is just putting the pipeline for the fuel storage and everything online, and then the testing can begin. So most of, that's why I was concerned about making sure that we have this equipment on the island, because any shipping or any activity would have hurt us. But so we're well on our way. And again,
What kind of capacity are we looking at when Ukudu gets put up and we still have the 4 baseload generators?
what kind of capacity we have? Ukudu is 198. Oh, huh? Yeah, it's in my slide. I believe it's over 400 some megawatts.
Oh, wow.
Today we have about 248. No? So it's almost twice the capacity that we would have.
And then my follow-up question is, how soon after Ukudu comes up are you looking to retire the Cabras 1 and 2?
You're talking about within 6 months, and I think you're looking at maybe within 2 to 3 months. Because the last of them, what we have to do with Cabras is to burn out all the fuel, because it's an RFO. It cannot be used for any other machine except
so burn off our existing fuel, then shut them down.
all the fuel, then bring the machine down, and then that would be the retirement process.
And you figure that's 3 to 6 months?
Now, that could be done within 3 months, but under the consent decree, we're provided 6 months after Okudu's commission to completely retire Cabras 1 and 2.
Okay.
But I think we can do that within 2 to 3 months.
So it would take 2 to 3 months, but you would recommend 6.
Yeah.
Okay. With Ukudu, because I had recently gotten a response from the military regarding their use of nuclear, that even if Guam were to pass any legislation barring nuclear, it wouldn't affect what's happening on the base, just what happens outside of it. That being said, though, they said one of the things that they said that really caught my eye was they said the only thing it would really affect is the ability for the local power generate GPA to integrate and interface with their nuclear energy. So I guess that's my question. There is, what is Ukudu's and GPA's ability to integrate nuclear energy if that option were ever available to us?
It's not, it's a matter of synchronizing the generator that produces power with the nuclear power plant into the grid. And any equipment that's a standard equipment that is just put together. So there's no real issue about integrating. The only issue that could come up is who's going to be the base load, who's going to run.
Who's actually going to run the generator itself?
Yeah, which generator, what is the pecking order of the generators? Which is the cheapest to run and everything. So if the military does put it in, and of course, I'm not getting into whether they could or not, but if they did put it in, and energy is cheap, then we could buy that from the military. See what I mean? Or, so again, so nuclear energy that is coming together today is not the same as the nuclear energy that have been around for decades. So it really doesn't have waste as was the previous case. It really come down in capacity. The nuclear energy was never really an option for Guam before because it's 1,000 megawatts. Guam only uses 250. So you're going to have this big machine not running, and of course economies of scale mean you're going to pay more. But nuclear energy today, with all the new technology, is coming in the smaller units. There are now work on commercialization of about 50 megawatt machine. 50 megawatt machine is what we use today. Ukudu has got 345 megawatt. Cambridge is 60 megawatts. PD8 and 9 is 43 megawatts. So you see, it now comes into the realm of a size that could be utilized in Guam. The only thing that concerns now is, of course, the economics of it. And of course, we're not going to go for any nuclear that is not safe, no? And it's not proven, if you will, right? So, but we keep our minds open because how do we bring our energy costs? No? We have to get away from fuel. Having 100% renewable, as I have shown many times, is very costly because batteries are costly. And if you have 3 weeks of rain, how are you going to get your energy in Guam? You've got to have another base load type of energy source. How do you get that? The conventional units, potentially a nuclear, the new nuclear type of units. Third, solid waste, solid burning of solid waste will give you some base load, but we don't have hydro. You say, how about pump storage? We can't use pump storage. They're just going to use the energy to pump it up and then to pump it out in the peak. That's why we have batteries today. So again, we don't have many options for base load, and but we always have to keep an eye of it. How do we get our energy costs down? Energy costs coming down means the island has more money, no, to multiply. Energy costs coming down means data centers will come in here. Data centers will come in here, in my opinion, if we have energy costs that is on a sustained basis. It cannot one day go like this because there goes all their profit margin. It's got to be on a sustained basis, right? And that's what we're heading with the process of renewables, Okudu, and battery storage coming up to be able to do that and bring in more energy centers, because what does that mean? Energy centers, data centers consume, have a very high load factor. So they're continuously running and burning energy. That's a lot of revenue for the island. Revenue that we can use to reduce the base rate. Remember, our base rate is 10 cents now? That revenue can start going down. So the combination of the lowering of the LEAC plus the base rate gives the island very affordable energy. So again, that's all part of that's the whole reasoning behind our quest to make this thing happen, no?
Yeah, let's talk about renewables very briefly. We recently experienced some daytime load shedding due to cloud cover, limiting our solar power generation. Um, what is the timeline for acquiring battery storage for our solar power plants?
Well, phase four is now requiring that 50% of the energy will be coming from, will be utilized in the evening through storage batteries. So let's say, for example, that we award 200 megawatts of this phase four renewables. That means we have 100 megawatts of battery. 100 megawatts of battery means you can run 10 megawatts for 10 hours in the evening time and all of that. So that's it's a stone throw, you know. I mean, within this decade, before the end, we're talking about 2027.
So we're looking at having the batteries with the solar generation come online at the same time.
Yep.
Fantastic. You had mentioned that the cost of underground power lines would be in the neighborhood of 6.4 billion. I know in a lot of these situations, like if I could give a short anecdote, during the pandemic, I got really into growing tomatoes, but I hated watering my plants. And so I found a way to automate that so that it watered itself. But then I had another problem of, oh my goodness, now I had to learn how to fix leaks all the time. And so while the undergrounding of the lines may fix one problem, what other problems would you anticipate would begin to come about if we were to make that switch? Like, would we have trouble with flooding? Would we have trouble with timely? What would be the issues we'd run into if we had underground lines? Because they can't just be a perfect solution, right?
Well, let's talk about just case in point. We just had 100 and close to 150 mile per hour typhoon Mawar, right? And it brought with it a whole bunch of rain, right? We serve power from Derido combustion turbine to Anderson Air Force Base, down to the substation in the Marine Base Guam, down to the Harmon substation. Throughout the storm, we did not black out in this past storm. So the technology of underground systems have improved substantially. The technology of persistent protection, where if something's wrong here, you isolate it. That way we don't have a blackout. I'm gonna knock on wood again. The last time we had a blackout was about 2013, 10 years ago. Because of the protection schemes that are there, the adjustments that are right. So when people lose energy in the daytime for a short period because we lost a base load or a big solar, if you notice within 15, 20 minutes, everyone is back. That's because of the protection. What is the downfall? Well, the downfall is undergrounds may take a little longer to fix. That's why you have redundant lines. The downfall is you're going to need a lot more trained people that work on underground system. So that's why we've actually increasing our number of apprentices that are going to be going and being trained underground, because underground personnel can also do overhead. And then we're going to cross-train overhead because they will all be capable of doing the same thing. So that's all, yes, being a part of our plan. And hopefully I don't find anything else that may be a problem. But if we do, we're gonna make sure we plan to fix it. But personnel, the technology has improved, making sure specifications are tight. The relay system is there to protect blackouts, and having loop system where if something goes wrong here, you can feed both customers from the other direction. And that's what the 7.4 billion will do, 6.4 billion.
Thank you for that, sir. That's really good to know that the technology for underground has come so far. With Guam's importance in the geopolitical realm, maybe someone can convince and lobby someone in Washington to put all of our power lines underground as a matter of national security.
Yeah, if you look at Tumun Bay came on the evening of the first day after the storm. All underground lines in the majority of Tumun Bay. And even the hospital, we got that back in that same evening after we were able to get out that day. But again, that's how fast with the underground systems. No?
Well, I'd like again to thank GPA for coming again and always be willing to answer the call for oversight. Always appreciate our conversations together. I feel I learn every time we have these conversations, and I hope the public does as well. If there are no further testimony from you folks, I think that will conclude our discussion on this oversight hearing. Thank you all for your participation. This oversight hearing on GPA is adjourned, and the time is now 10:30.